The stock markets in the US have performed well as of late, all thanks to the assumption that taxation will be reduced, thereby supporting businesses. This bull market cannot be sustained on assumptions alone. We need to see substance. The Dow Jones has just done something it hasn't since 1987. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Let's look at this versus 1987. We're going to talk about the stock markets today. We are going to talk about housing and a few other issues. Let's get right into it. Out of CNBC with the 10 Dow records in a row. It wouldn't be a surprise if Wall Street's bull caught its breath in the near future. This actually also includes a video where they interviewed Mark Faber, who said that at this time, the market is overbought. It's simply a bull market which needs to have a little bit of retracement. It's just a natural event that needs to occur, even if you're on the bullish side. Stocks closed mixed Thursday, but the Dow was the leader in its longest streak of record closes since the first 13 trading days of 1987. Traders often wince when 1987 is mentioned, since it's remembered as the year of the famous October stock market crash. So just a little side note, the Dow closing in on 21,000. Huge numbers happening right here in the US stock markets, that's for sure. One of the points that is made is that other stock markets around the world, despite what you've seen with the US stock markets, others around the world have actually outperformed it. That's just interesting, always to put it into perspective. I do believe that is very, very key, because you could say, look, inflation is low. Other people will say inflation is high, but it's all relative to the other nations, relative historically. You need to address it like that. You know, if we look and say interest rates are currently 0% or 1%, you just immediately have an opinion of it. Well, if the entire world is at 0%, suddenly things are just average. That seems to be the new normal. You have to sort of look at things all relative. Again, I believe that's key. Okay, then we move on to this article from way back when, 1987, stocks plunged 508 points, a drop of 22.6%. Imagine that. Imagine the Dow Jones today dropping 22.6%. I mean, that would just shatter the markets. 604 million volume nearly doubles the record, nearly doubling the record in one day. So you have a record drop in a day and the volume as well. A huge blow. This is the other point I wanted to make, to the 5-year bull market. So everyone's thinking, oh, it's great, it's great, it's great, it's great. And then all of a sudden, it just comes down. So look at this chart here. It's going up, and along the way, there are dips, you know, this and that. And the direction, though, is clearly upward. And in literally one day, stock goes down. Stock market as a whole. One of the things that I read was that you basically had nobody to sell to. And that's the challenge. People believe that they will be able to get out when times are tough. But look at this as the perfect example of how that may not be the case. It happened in one day. What if it didn't happen in one day and it happened over the course of a week or 2 weeks? Many people think they'll be able to sell off, but that isn't the way it works. There always has to be a buyer on the other side. You need to be able to sell that share. It's not just an automated process. There is a whole bunch of things involved in that. Yes, it's all computers now. that would take care of this all. But you have to remember, it's not going to happen the way you like it. Very important to know. Let's look at oil. The U.S. exported a record amount of crude oil, topping 1 million barrels a day for the second week, filling the gap in the world markets created by the OPEC cutback. So there it is, keeping the price of oil subdued, or that's what they call it anyway. Shale and other U.S. producers sent 1.2 million barrels of crude onto the world markets. That's up 200,000 barrels. OPEC's got a competitor. They certainly have to be concerned about the U.S. oil producers eating to their market share. It is important to note that with shale, with fracking, they've opened up a whole new market. So you take that the way it is. All I wanted to say is that from my research into fracking, it just seems to be very dangerous. That's the consensus that I've found. And this is, surface level information. I'm seeing reports of earthquakes in places that never used to get earthquakes, and now all of a sudden they have like 100 earthquakes a day. And then you have other towns that are hearing all these weird sounds all the time. And I don't know if that's linked. I don't know. But I'm just finding that there's a lot of weird things going on under the earth, and they have linked it to the all the fracking that's been going on. I don't know. I think it's a little worrisome. That's all. For years, millennials looked at owning a home as a distant fantasy. Student debt and weak jobs market seem to conspire to keep this generation stuck in their parents' basements, if not permanently locked out of the housing market. Think about how many people you know which are just graduating, or they've graduated, they can't find work, and perhaps they get into their first job. Are they able to move out into a house, any sort of property? Or do they have to live with their parents for an extended period of time? Or do they have to live in some sort of cooperative type housing? This is becoming a very big trend. And what they suggest in this is that the housing market has the fewest homes available for sale on record. This video here is apparently one after the other of record. Those that are for sale are increasingly priced at values inaccessible to first-time buyers. And we are talking about here in the US, you look at it in Canada, take the few top major cities, and you see something that's, to suggest it's inaccessible is really understating it. As a result, the housing market is booming for those with cash to spare, but not for the millennials. So you have to think, where are they going to be able to buy their homes? The rental prices have increased dramatically. People are buying homes. Foreigners are buying homes. People that are living within the country are buying homes. And it's happening now, apparently, fewest homes available on record. Does that mean there's less being purchased? I think these numbers might be a little bit skewed, but it's interesting to say the least. I at least wanted to acknowledge the fact that people getting into the workforce now are unable to buy homes. Just a fact. Most borrowers, whether they are purchasing property or refinancing their home, focus their mortgage rate and loan terms rather than the type of lender they choose. And basically saying, for most people it doesn't really matter, but if you go to the big banks, you may not get the best rate. And what we have seen here at the bottom paragraph, in 2011, 50% of all new mortgage money was loaned by the three biggest banks in the US. But by September 2016, the share of these loans, big banks, dropped to 21%, less than half. So something big has changed inside the mortgage market, and I do believe it is a trend. Now, people are looking for better deals. You're going to find this to be a trend continuing in the future. This is something that I brought up recently, but now it has officially taken place. The Shenzhen-based and listed Recon Holding has taken 51% in Millennium Films. It's a producer of the Expendables series for $100 million. The two companies announced on Thursday. So there was initially rumors. They said it was going to happen, and now officially it has happened. The Chinese corporations have been buying into Hollywood like it's nobody's business. This is going on right now at a rate that it's weird to me, because you look at it just a few years ago and it was being talked about, maybe, sort of, it's happening, and now it seems like every couple days I'm seeing some news of at least talk of it happening, and then you see the deals coming out every so often. It's just accelerating so rapidly, like as if they got an order from somebody at the top saying, okay, buy out the media. It's really strange, really strange what's going on here. This here is something that they're just dying to do, dying to make this happen. Boots on the ground in Syria. That's right. The top U.S. military officer declined repeatedly to rule out committing the U.S. ground troops to battle the Islamic State in Syria, stressing that the Pentagon will present Donald Trump with a full range of options to combat the terror organization. Boots on the ground is obviously something that they're just dying to have. It is just what the military-industrial complex salivates over. You don't want to have just drones. You want to have the boots on the ground. That's when you can be really messy up there. So we'll see if it happens. It will be interesting to see, and to try and take on something like the Islamic State, which is not really one single entity, but it is funded and trained by your own individuals, and then it's allowed to sort of spread organically. And that's what's happening now. You're not going to be able to destroy the boogeyman. You're not going to be able to have a war on terror. You know, it's silly. Anyway, let's move on. Project Veritas releases over 100 hours of audio from inside CNN. This is incredible. O'Keefe is one brave individual. If you don't know who he is, then you will have to look him up. It's really amazing, really brave individual. There's no doubt, where he went went through both borders from Mexico into the US and from Canada into the US, and he was dressed like Osama bin Laden, like an ISIS terrorist, basically coming through the borders and filming the whole ordeal, saying that, look, you cannot secure these borders. It's impossible, showing you the weakness of the security from both sides of the border. And that's what he really became famous for, showed the voting fraud. Now he's released over 100 hours of audio from inside CNN. And also what's important to note is that he offered $10,000 to anybody who can provide him media malfeasance. Basically said, if you see some corruption going on inside the media, let me know. I'll pay you 10 grand if it's good enough. This is going to start some crazy happenings. We're going to see this information expand. There is no doubt. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. When you give me a thumbs up, it helps to push these videos up in the YouTube search rankings. If you found the video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. So head over to Amazon. They actually have this look inside feature that will allow you to flip through the pages of the book to see if you like it. Take care.